and today we're going to be going on a bit of a journey with American Horror Story. I have just finished binge watching seasons 1 to 7 on Netflix, and these are the only seasons that are available on Netflix. I'm going to talk you guys through my thought process while I try to decide if I want to watch season 8, like if I think it's going to be worth my time, if I think I'm going to enjoy it, and basically just recap over what I thought about all of the previous 7 seasons. So let's get on with it. So, Season 1 was originally just called American Horror Story, but then it got Star Wars A New Hope into American Horror Story Murder House. And basically what that is all about is it is about a house where a lot of people were murdered, and they're all ghosts now. And I think this is probably the strongest season for American Horror Story, and I've thought that from the very beginning, because I originally started watching AHS when it was on TV, and then I just kind of binged them all on Netflix just to get it all done, because I fell off the wagon at about like season 4, halfway through season 4, maybe halfway through season 5. So I've always thought that Murder House has the strongest story, and there are a few reasons for that. Number one, it is focused. It is, compared to certain seasons, like laser focused on the Harmons, who are the main characters, and what they experience in the murder house. There's not too much extraneous stuff, and if there is any extra stuff, it all ties back into the story really strongly. I enjoyed all of the performances. I do think it is a bit weird to have an American Horror Story where Sarah Paulson isn't a lead character, but obviously season 1 was before they really realized who was going to be their stable of recurring actors. So to have Sarah Paulson there as Billie Dean Howard and not as the main character is a little odd, but other than that, I really liked Murder House. It is my favorite season. It will always be my favorite season. And it's a really good introduction to the anthology horror series. Season 2 is Asylum, and this season is a total mess, at least to me. There is a lot going on in this season. There is an insane asylum. There is a lady trapped in an insane asylum who originally tried to get into the insane asylum to report about all of the horrors that were happening there. There is a demon subplot. There is an alien subplot. The show starts out like Kit Walker, who is Evan Peters' character in this season, is going to be the main character, but it actually ends up being Lana Winters, who is Sarah Paulson's character, and it just kind of chops and changes. Maybe there's Nazis, maybe there's zombies. It hasn't really got a focus, and it was quite a weak season, for me at least. The best thing about this season is probably Zachary Quinto as Dr. Oliver Thredson. He does a really good job of portraying a madman. He was brilliant in Heroes. He's probably the best thing about certain series of Heroes, and he is definitely the best thing about Asylum, and that's really all I want to say on the matter. I don't like Asylum. I think season 2 is probably one of the weaker seasons. It's not the weakest though. We will get to that very shortly. The third season is Coven, and again, I really like this season. It is another one of the more focused seasons, although there are a few subplots that I could possibly have done without. This one is all about witches, and that really resonates with me. I enjoy the magical aspect. I like the fact that it's more grounded in reality than season 2, which is a bit weird considering season 2 was set in an asylum and season 3 is all about witches, but season 2 had aliens and it just doesn't make sense. So season 3 is more grounded. It has elements from season 1 in that there are ghosts, and it again has a very, very focused story. It's very focused on what the new class of witches at Miss Robichaud's Academy are going through. The weakest part of this season is actually Evan Peters' subplot, and I cannot for the life of me remember what his character is called. I think he's called Kyle, but I'm not like 100% sure on this. And the reason for that is I think this season, Coven, really could have done without Evan Peters. His storyline feels very tacked on. It feels very much like, oh, we can't possibly do an American Horror Story without Evan Peters, or it was there to balance out the fact that it is a very feminist girl power kind of series. There is a big focus on women and discrimination in general in this season, and I think the Evan Peters storyline kind of detracts from that. I don't think it's necessarily one of the best storylines that he's ever done, and yeah, that's really the only thing that lets Coven down, and it's the reason why Coven isn't my favourite as opposed to Murder House. Season 4 is where things kind of went downhill a bit for me. This one was Freak Show, and I was actually really looking forward to it because it had a serial killer clown, it was set in a circus, And I think that's just like a super creepy place to be, is a circus. I've never had a particularly good experience at a circus. Mind you, I've only been to 2 circuses, and I mean, I wasn't killed, so it wasn't that bad. However, Freak Show, for me, again, lacked focus. There was a lot going on, a lot of new characters and new concepts introduced quite late in the day, like Edward Mordrake. Twisty, who is the killer clown, really doesn't make it past the halfway point of the series, and is instead succeeded by Finn Wittrock's character, Dandy. Finn Wittrock's character and his portrayal of Dandy in this are perfect. They are the best thing about the season for me, because Freak Show is a bloated, dragged out, badly paced mess. It is 12 episodes long. It did not need to be 12 episodes long. The main story of the series barely filled like 9 episodes. There was a lot of filler, a lot of extraneous details that we didn't need, and it was a musical season. And normally I love a good musical episode. Give me a good musical episode any day of the week. The Buffy musical episode is great. However, there was a problem with the music in this one, in that it kind of didn't fit with the theme of the show in general. And I'm not saying that because it was modern songs in a 1950s setting, because that juxtaposition I usually really love. It's more a case of, it just was very jarring to have people singing quite upbeat songs sometimes. Elsa Mars, who is Jessica Lange's character, sings a David Bowie song, and that's kind of like her theme, and I get it, I understand it, I just personally didn't like it, and I personally didn't really enjoy Freak Show either. So, currently, we're at 2 seasons I did enjoy, and 2 seasons that I didn't enjoy, and we come to season 5, which is Hotel. This is another season that is too long. It could do with being maybe 2 episodes shorter, because episode 9, episode 10, episode 11, and episode 12 all feel like ending episodes. It's very odd. It feels like they are trying to wrap up so many different storylines and give so many people a different ending that it just drags. And to be honest with you, the storyline itself for 5 wasn't that interesting, at least not for me. Again, it's the Hotel Cortez is haunted because of all the bad things that have happened there, and it's basically based on the story of H.H. Holmes, who built a hotel that had all sorts of traps and designs and like false corridors and things like that to hide the fact that he was a serial killer. And that's quite an interesting concept. I just don't think it was explored very well here. Oh, and this is the season with vampires that never say they're vampires. So again, there's a lot going on. We've got vampires, we've got ghosts, we've got the addiction demon, we've got serial killers, we've got the 10 Commandments killer. There's a lot to take in. And again, it's one of those ones where they just kind of chop and change between stories, and it doesn't really feel like anything has a satisfying ending, especially when you consider there are like 9 different endings, or it feels like there are 9 different endings for this season, because it just keeps going. It just doesn't stop. So again, season 5 is a pretty weak season for me, and it was around season 4, season 5 that I stopped watching American Horror Story every week that it was on TV. I'd kind of let them build up and then try and catch up on them, and I just never did, and I stopped watching at the end of season 5. Maybe watched a couple of episodes of season 6 here and there. But that's when I stopped watching American Horror Story the first time. So, season 6 is my Roanoke experience, or something along those lines. It's all about Roanoke, and this was an interesting change to the format of American Horror Story, because the first half of this season is set like one of those reenactment shows where you have people talking about their experiences and then reenactment actors acting it out, basically. Like, not to over-explain anything here, but that is what the first half of this season is. And then the second half of this season is set like a reality show, where it's the people who originally experienced the Roanoke reenactment stuff, which are Lily Rabe's character and a couple other characters, and the actors who played them in the reenactment go back to the house where this happened, and shenanigans ensue, basically. And the first half of this season, while being kind of weird and kind of very different to American Horror Story, at least in the way it was presented, was actually kind of good. I really enjoyed it up until episode 6. After episode 6, when it changes to the more reality show format, it kind of lost me a little bit. I Again, don't think the season really needed to be that long. The last episode entirely pretty much has none of the main characters in it bar one. I really wasn't happy with the ending. Basically, there is a character called Lee, and through circumstances, she ends up murdering her husband and then murdering a few other people, and she kinda gets away with it. And that doesn't sit well with me. I really didn't expect her to end up being the main character or the final girl. I was really rooting for Lily Rabe's character, Shelby, to be the final girl and to make it all the way through to the end. And she doesn't, so that was a bit disappointing, I guess. And again, I just don't think the season needed to be as long as it was. I don't think it needed to have the ending that it did, and realistically, it was kind of the worst written season as well. The story itself sucks, and the writing itself sucks. And you can try and pass that off as, oh, it's in-universe bad writing because they're on a reenactment show. But it still needs to be engaging to the person who is watching the show within a show, and it isn't. Also, and this is just a personal point as someone who is British, Sarah Paulson is a really good actress. I am not going to fault her for that. Her British accent is annoying as all hell. It's not a bad accent. That accent does exist over here in Britain, but it's so rare, it just makes her come across as a bit of a snob. It's a very upper class, kind of snobby accent is the only way I can describe it. And it starts to grate after a while, especially when she is in scenes screaming at the top of her lungs in this really grating British accent. Yeah, that's kind of something else that I just didn't like about this season. So, moving into season 7, which is Cult, which is the last season that I'm going to be talking about. We're on 2 seasons that I liked and 4 seasons that I didn't like. So, I'm sure you can see where this is going, but let's get on with it anyway. I didn't like Cult either. What a surprise. And it was a shame. I thought this was a really, really good premise to have it all bouncing off of the presidential election where Donald Trump was elected. But some of the storylines weren't really developed very well. Ivy, who's played by Alison Pill, basically joins a cult to get back at her wife Allie because she didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I think that is the reason that is given in the show, but I'm not 100% sure. Allie, who is again played by Sarah Paulson, is scared of everything up until halfway through the season, and then she just snaps, and she's not scared of everything, and she turns into a cold-blooded murderer. Evan Peters is there as Kai Anderson, and he does a spot-on job of being a crazy, psychopathic cult leader. I presume it's because he's so used to all of his fans and how that's kind of a cult because everyone seems to really love him. That's a joke, by the way. I don't actually think Evan Peters runs a cult, just in case that gets taken out of context. But I feel like his storyline as well wasn't really developed properly. He basically, I don't even know the origin. I'm struggling to explain it. And this is the one that I watched the most recently. I binged all 7 seasons of American Horror Story in 3 weeks, which for me is a really bad binge time. I can normally do that in a week and a half, but it was just such a slog towards the end that I kept putting it off. But anyway, I don't know how I can explain Kai Anderson's storyline. Basically, he wants to be a city councilman, and then he wants to be the senator, and he wants to take over the world. Sometimes it's feminist, sometimes it's alt-right, sometimes they're neo-Nazis, sometimes he thinks he's Charles Manson. A lot of this is introduced really late in the day as well. I'm talking, it's an 11-episode season. I'm pretty certain Charles Manson and Jim Jones start being spoken about in episode 8, episode 9, very, very late in the day. It's all kinds of weird. It really doesn't end well. I don't remember the ending. I just remember being highly disappointed about it. I think what happens is Allie runs for Senate, does a rally, Kai shows up, gets shot, Allie wins, and then she puts the green hood on, which was only ever very briefly touched on 4 episodes beforehand, because that's the scum hood. And yeah, Andy Warhol was in this season, with him being shot by Valerie, whose name escapes me. That's apparently relevant to this season as well. It's all over the shop. There is no focus. I don't know what happened. So, the main crux of this video is I needed to talk through my thought process with you guys to decide whether or not I am going to watch Season 8. As of right now, there are 2 thoughts that are stopping me from watching Season 8, and a final third thought that is kind of convincing me to watch Season 8. So, the first thought for not watching Season 8 is it going to suck as much as the last, 4 seasons of American Horror Story did? I've been told no. I've been told that it starts slowly and gets better, but I'm not 100% sure if I want to take that at face value and slog through 4 episodes for a really good finale. The second one is Apocalypse going to be all over the place? Because it does a lot of linking back to previous seasons, and I feel like with trying to force all of that into Season 8 and have a coherent story as well, I think it's going to lack focus, and I don't think it's going to be very enjoyable to watch. However, the one and only thought that I have towards actually watching Season 8 of American Horror Story is, well, I've watched the first 7, I may as well watch the last one. In for a penny, in for a pound, just waste 12 hours of my life. So, yeah, I'm undecided. That's basically the crux of this video, is I'm undecided as to whether or not I want to watch the next season, so I need your help. Let me know in the comments below if American Horror Story Apocalypse is worth watching, or if it's not worth watching, and I will let you know in the future whether I decide to watch it or not. Maybe I'll do a review, maybe I'll just put, yeah, it sucks on Twitter. But anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and as always, you can join me next Friday at 8 for the next video.